So welcome everyone. My name is Kunal. I'm a part of the learning squad for ICF Bangalore chapter. Shanti is away today. So the responsibility of moderation is on my tender shoulders. And also to welcome a guest like Gayatri, a senior member. I think I need all the audience support more than Gayatri for me to moderate today's session. Yeah. So thank you, Gayatri, for joining us. Friends, today's agenda is about, um, we've done this psychometrics tools overview for a while now, and we've received tremendous feedback from everyone. This series cannot be complete without Hogan assessments, which are like one of the leading assessments today in the corporate space. So that's why we wanted to talk about it and share the learnings with you, and no better than Gayatri could do that. And the reason is, like, Gayatri was one of the first batches or the students of Hogan assessments in India, especially for the advanced program. It's 2013, right, Gayatri, when you did the Hogan assessments, and then the
I did,
advanced was
2012 and then 2015.
12 and 15. So and having done hundreds and thousands of assessments, Gayatri has tons of experience. Other things about Gayatri, you all know, she also leads our magazine initiative for the ICF Bangalore chapter. She comes with more than 35 years of experience, corporate experience. Also, she's a PCC and EMCC as well. And when it comes to organizational development, Gayatri has, loads of experience and wisdom to share as well. So I'll ask her to get started and talk to us today about the Hogan tool. A couple of, pointers more. Gayatri has also brought in some case studies as well for all of us to understand realistically how the tool really helps. So that's going to be very exciting part. I will request all of you to keep your cameras on so that this can be more visual in terms of experiencing. At the same time, please share your questions in the chat. There will be at least 3 occasions in this 90-minute session where we will be taking those questions from the audiences, first in the chat, and if otherwise, over the call. So keep pouring in your questions, whatever they are. And once those modules are over, then Gayatri will address those questions. Anything else that you would want me to add, Gayatri, from if I may have missed?
No, I think your strong shoulders will make up for my frail shoulders at my age. But thanks a lot for your support. And yes, so Hogan is something very close to me, and luckily I'm continue to do a lot of work in Hogan and give feedback to a variety of people. And let me just share my screen.
Sure.
And talk to you about what is important about Hogan, or why is it that I was attracted to it. Kunal, you'll have to enable screen sharing, please.
I'll just do that.
Yeah. So one was, of course, a lot of companies around me where I was doing some work were using Hogan a lot. And by nature, I'm pretty miserly. So I didn't initially certify myself, but then I saw the value and the kind of work which was being done. So I kind of, loosened my purse strings and did the Hogan certifications, and I have not regretted it at all. Okay, so just let me share my slides.
Yeah.
Hold on. I just have to make it into a slideshow from the beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a world's leading provider of assessments. It was done by Dr. Hogan, who actually has a very eclectic experience. He's an engineer, so I guess he has the logic. He's been in military, so I guess he has the discipline. And then, of course, he has the fuzziness of a psychologist. So put all together, it's a great instrument, and it's a global instrument, assessed over 11 million working adults. So it's specifically tailored for working adults. I'm not saying other ones are not, but this one was aimed at working adults. 30 years of research and continuous system. This point that it is legally defensible is very important because it has been challenged but not successfully. So there, when people are using it for promotion and recruitment, etc., there is always this fear that somebody challenges you. How do you hold it up? So the data to hold that up is there. Okay. The flagship three assessments of Hogan have been what is called as HPI, which is Human Personality Index, which measures everyday strengths and weaknesses. It's also called the bright side of a person. That's why it's that bright orange, sunflower orange. I'll go to the red one, which is called HBS, Hogan Development Survey. And this is called the dark side of a person. And what are the things which can derail you? MVPI is motives, values, preferences index. It's what is inside. So all of us have seen that iceberg picture, I think, gazillion times. So this is under the surface. And that part is important because this is again what it describes. This is day-to-day behavior, HPI, the bright side. HDS is under stress behavior. It's not a regular behavior, but what happens when there is stress, and MVPI is what motivates people. Okay. Now, all the scores are percentiles, and that's why I was saying MVPI is under the surface. It is also a percentile, and that is also normed globally among working adults. And any one of you has faced a bell curve or had to draw a bell curve will know that a bell curve is as valid as the population it is drawn over, right? So if you have 10 people, it may not be as valid, but this has been done over a large number of people and occupational categories. Again, the same thing, 30 years of independent research, and the inventory measure a person's reputation. I will touch on this reputation in just a little while because that is a very important aspect of Hogan, and it is a predictive test. Okay. So what is the value of reputation in coaching? Generally, if I do an MBTI or a 16PF, I get scores which tell me what is my identity. This is the story we tell ourselves. Sometimes we get to know stories which are very deep, which have now come out because when we did the test, that identity is coming through. So there is a lot of value in each of these tests. Hogan assessments measures reputation, not identity. In other words, they will assess what others think of you rather than just what you think you are. And this sometimes comes across in a 360 also, because you go and ask others as to what is it that they think of you. Sometimes it's with respect to a competency, sometimes it could be a value, but it tells you what others think of you. And they had done it by actually at the time of the setup, going to the stakeholders and asking them what they thought of the test taker. Okay. So they have data where if you respond to the inventories in such a fashion, how are you likely to be perceived or what is your reputation? And a lot of the coaching comes from the gap between the reputation and identity. Sometimes it may not matter. Okay, I'm very, I'm introverted, and others, think whatever it is. I don't care, But if I think I'm warm and friendly, and my reputation is that I'm introverted, I may want to take steps and see why is it that others are not feeling that warmth which I feel for them. Okay. Now, The reputation part is only for the HPI and HDS. MVPI is not reputational because, it is not possible for others to know why you do what you do. So they did not map the MVPI is not reputational. It is identity. Okay. Shall I go ahead? If there are any quick questions, I'll be happy to answer that. Are there any questions in the chat?
There is one question in the chat. It's by Yatish. Is there only one global
Yes,
norm?
there is only one global norm. That is correct. But more and more data is coming from different parts. It is US centered, but because that is where most people have taken. Now, a lot of people ask us that, but most of the, it's done with the senior leaders who are in global roles often, or aspire to be global roles, in global roles, So it's making more and more sense now when, people are in global roles. Even as coaches, we are perhaps dealing with people from so many cultures, so many countries, etc. But yes, it is just one global norm. Okay. Like I said, there are three inventories, and each of the inventories have some traits or scales. Now, often as a practitioner, it's very important to know what does that word mean, because they are English words with which we have common interpretations, So, for example, this is the HPI, okay? We have 7 scales. Adjustment is about confidence, self-esteem, and composure under pressure. A lot of first-timers who read the report get very upset when that adjustment is low, because they say, I adjust so much, I accommodate so much. So it's very important to see it in terms of the definition which is given for that scale. Similarly, ambition is about initiative, competitiveness, and desire for leadership. Sociability is about networking and the extent of how much you want to connect. So I like to go to a party. If I go to a party at a time when we had visiting card, a high sociability person will want to make sure that all the 50 people present get their visiting card because they want to connect, Now, of course, it's a different scenario, but this is the breadth of the social connection. Interpersonal sensitivity is the depth. So it's about tact, perceptiveness, and ability to maintain relationship. These people are caring, very sensitive, and it is related to empathy, but not necessarily that it will, be just directly proportional. Prudence is about self-discipline, responsibility, and thoroughness. Inquisitive is about curiosity, imagination, and creative potential. So people who are high inquisitive like to know much more than just their domain. So I have a friend who is attending classes in astronomy in the night, because curious person who wants to know a lot about a lot of topics. And as children, we are generally high in curiosity and inquisitiveness, but as an adult, sometimes it comes down. Learning approach is about the approach to learning. It need not talk about the amount of learning. So when learning approach is high, this is a person who will value education, certifications, etc., and learn in an academic manner. When it is low, they like to learn by doing. Okay. I'll go through the 3 inventories and then maybe take questions and explain a few other things. These are what are called as derailers, and this is when person is under stress. So when under stress, things get triggered, and a derailer is when that trigger happens frequently. If my excitable is my derailer, I really get moody, unpredictable. I'll be happy one day, I'll be immediately pessimistic. So a gamut of emotions, and looks like they are showing the stress they are under. Okay. Now, the thing to note about both these scales and also later MBPI, there is no desirable score as such. All the scores have strengths at throughout the spectrum. The scores generally go from 0 to 100. So there will be positives even at very low scores of 10 and 11 and very high scores of 100. And watch outs on both ends of the spectrum. And it also depends on the kind of job. For example, skeptical is about suspicious, sensitive to criticism, expecting betrayal, being very, very, examining motives. Sherlock Holmes was skeptical and it stood him in good stead. So depends on the kind of job or work that one does. The derailers may have some positive manifestations. Cautious is someone who is risk averse, resistant to change. Again, if a person is in safety and compliance professions, very low cautious may not be a suitable trait. You can't really find a new creative accounting method on the fly. So it can be a positive. Reserved is someone who likes to be alone. Now remember, this is a derailer under stress. So there are people who have very high sociability, but when they are under stress, they like to withdraw and go into their own shell. So it can be because they are introverts, but there are outwardly, social people who may have reserved as a derailer. Leisurely is paying lip service. So these are people who will say yes, but keep to their own agenda. Bold is someone who is extremely self-confident, arrogant, and entitled. So suppose there is bold, they are very, very receptive to taking challenges, but they're also not willing to let go. They think I can do it at no, not looking at the signs that failure is imminent. Mischievous is someone who is charming, risk-taking, and excitement-seeking. So people like having them in their midst, but their risk-taking may go overboard. Colorful, I think, is someone if I'm sure all of you know Rakhi Sawant or even Poonam Pandey, who said one day that she's dead and next day she was not dead. These are dramatic attention-seeking people and interruptive. And when it is high, it can be very disruptive. So colorful is that. Imaginative is kite flying kind of inquisitiveness, too out of the box. Diligent is someone who is uh, hardworking to a fault. So suppose you have this screen and something is not okay. Even in the middle of a session, they may correct it because they see that mistake. They cannot stand mistake. And it is their own standard. It's not somebody else's standard. So they tend to be very meticulous, which is good, but also end up micromanaging. Dutiful is someone, eager to please and reluctant to act independently. Again, here I must point out, like, if in the military, they expect dutifulness, it's with a reason, because lives depend on the chain of command. So there are certain areas where these can be positive and some other areas where it can be disruptive. And people keep asking me when I do my feedback and debrief, what is the best profile to have? How much should my ambition be? Should all my derailers be low? All my derailers are high. What should I do to reduce it? These are all traits, which means I'm 5 foot. I'll be 5 foot. Since I'm past that age of growing. I may grow shorter after I become 70, but definitely I'm not going to grow taller. But what we do with what we have is what will make us. So just having it is not enough, and not having it, but working on it can also work. So we repeat the statement that people are above their scale. So these are interpretations of what is likely to happen, but what does happen is in the hands of the people. The last one which I am going to go for is MVPI. MVPI is about motives, values, preferences, inventory. And we have 10 scales. Okay. Recognition is about wanting approval. Power is wanting to be in control. Hedonism is orientation for fun. So hedonism was another one which stumped me because I had a very negative view of hedonism. I had heard that Nero was fiddling when Rome was burning and he was hedonistic. And my hedonism was really high. And, said, I'm very responsible. I'm not like that, but it is not about that. It is just that people, work hard, play hard kind of person, or wants to have a light atmosphere where people at work, at home, etc. Altruistic is wanting to help others. Affiliation is enjoying and seeking out social interaction. Now, this is another scale where people say, but I like people. Yes, but do you seek it out? I like people, but I also like to sit and work for 4 hours on my articles. My affiliation need is not as high as somebody who is seeking it. And in the pandemic, those with very high affiliation were affected more because they really like to go out, meet people, preferably face to face. When it is low, you like people, but you don't go out seeking interaction. Tradition is dedication to strong personal beliefs, and it could be religious, it could be political, it could be just your family values. It need not be restricted to any particular sphere of belief. Security is wanting predictability, structure, and order. And at one point, when I was in recruitment, I remember people would come and say, yeah, I was doing recruitment for an IT company. He says, yeah, the money is better, but I would prefer an SBI job because it's more secure. And my parents feel that, it's more stable. Commerce is interest in money, but not necessarily money-mindedness. It is just that whatever you want value, they can quickly calculate opportunity cost, look at ratios and find out what is better, etc. Aesthetics is about self-expression. People who are aesthetic, there used to be this advertisement called Mera Wala Pink. So that aesthetics wants Mera Wala Pink, not just pink. If the aesthetics is low, okay, they have some need for beauty, but they're not as oriented towards the feel. Science is about what is inside, the data. So if you're buying a fridge and you particular about the color, the shape, and how it will sit well with the wall color, your aesthetics is high. But if you're looking at what is the wattage, or how much electricity will it come from, is it 4-star, 5-star, etc., then your science is high. Now, the beauty is what happens when the interplay is there. If your aesthetics is low, science is high, you will decide quickly. If your aesthetics is also high and science is also high, you will be going and stepping into 10 shops or 12 shops until both the needs are met. So, to some extent, these are needs which you are pursuing. I'm going to stop here and just take any questions before we go down to subskills, because that is a very important part of Hogan.
So couple of questions were there. One is when you said Hogan is based on reputation. So does that mean that this does not include self-assessment?
It includes self-assessment. It is, see, for example, I have these are, it's a very detailed one, no? So many responses are there. So suppose I think I am very friendly, I am very warm, but in my response, I say I like my alone time. I like to read books. If I had a choice of going to a party or I had a choice of reading a book, I read a book. Hogan will say that I am a very low in sociability. Now my image maybe I am always helpful. Why are they not calling me for Haldi Kumkum when they're calling everyone else? And the one time they called, I went, So what is happening? But they don't know that, right? My visible behavior is one of wanting to be by myself. Now, if I want to be seen as sociable, I have to at least say good morning to them in the morning. Just show the need to socialize, right? So it's not that what you say doesn't matter. It's based on what you say that's being lit or something. So sometimes people don't know how things are perceived, right? I'm very happy with what you say, but I'm not smiling. Then you will not what you say doesn't matter, how you are likely to be perceived. Now, the value in coaching is to check that they can do their own 360 feedback or ask their stakeholders and see whether that perception is right. If it is not, they can let go. But
Gayatri, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
I'm also not. Kunal?
Yes. So there's a little bit of a patchy connection. I think um, you want to try switching off the video for a moment and see if that helps.
Oh,
Maybe we'll just wait for her to. That is there. You're on mute.
okay, right.
Yeah.
So
Now
I
we
need
can
to
hear you
press
well.
it again, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll do that.
Kunal, will it help if we switch off our videos?
I don't think so. I don't think it's a problem with you people. I think mine threw me out and I was just talking. I don't know where I stopped also. I think. But just I was answering that question on it doesn't matter what we think. And then are there any other questions, Kunal? Because now my chat is all wiped out.
Right. No, so I think one of the questions that has come up is, I think it comes up every time, largely, which is about that, coaching is supposed to be unbiased, or, should not, it's not sort of about, it's all about curiosity. Then wouldn't a psychometric assessment color it in some ways? So,
Okay. Coaching is about objectiveness, and some of the assessments help you in objectiveness because suppose I show you the mirror, I'm dressing up, and there's a stain on the back of my dress. Unless someone shows me the back or I go to that kind of a mirror, so I have to look at it from different perspectives. So, to be fair, after the first or two sessions, we do get away from the psychometrics. Okay. But just like you ask questions, this is the data which is there, right? It helps them accept it, that the data is more accepted when it comes from a Gyani or a source which is really, taken so much trouble to do what they have done, when it is valid, etc. So yes, it is objective, but we share our observations. They will share their boss's observation. We even use 360 and maybe even performance appraisal. So this is just one, but typically in my coaching, I will use this any of the assessments. It doesn't matter whether it's Hogan or Strength Finder, but there are some areas to look at. Generally, I would take their identity, their idea of identity before I do the test, or at least before I reveal the results. So I say, okay, what do you think of these things? Then what does the test tell you? And then what are these critical stakeholders thinking? We may not have the luxury of getting all that, but each one of them helps in establishing the need within the coachee to select which goal do they want to select and how is it impacting them.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Right?
Yeah. We can
Okay,
move on.
so so now in each of these these are the flagship three assessments. In each of them, there are subscales. I'm not going to go into each subscale because then it will become like a
Yes.
Hogan
Sure.
practitioner session. But I will take one particular case. Okay. For example, there are two people with ambition score under HPI, and both of them are scoring 51. Okay. But when you look at the subscale, you see the difference. So these are live examples. Okay. Now, the first one is competitive, which is basically, somebody who likes to compete and win. And it's generally a healthy demonstration of competitiveness. But when competitive is very high, you can become somebody who says, I have to have it at any cost. Self-confident is quite self-evident. Okay. Accomplishment is something like, being proud of what you do. There are people who are on to the next shiny object or the next goal before even acknowledging their win. Leadership is not about the ability to lead, but asking for leadership position, showing an interest in leadership, So they don't just wait and say, Karmanyeva adhikaraste, they'll make me a manager if I'm fit, and then slowly over a period of time, they may not be able to, they may not get what they want. Identity is knowing where you want to go. And sometimes, for example, in the first score, identity is 2, the other one 4. A couple of things can happen. One is a midlife crisis where you're not sure which direction you want to go. Second is you may be very sure, but not thought of the impact of what your goals are. Okay. Social anxiety is about public confidence, and it is important part of ambition. So the same exact score can have a very different nuances. So in my coaching, for the first person, I did talk a lot about identity as to what are the choices and how will it look when they get there? Is that what they want? And what are they not choosing? Social anxiety is important because especially in today's corporate world, you don't present yourself and use opportunities to highlight yourself. You are kind of on a back foot. Okay. So about what is it that, they may have other scores of fear of failure, fear of criticism, etc. So we dwelt on that one. So now I told you that these are the 3 flagship assessment, but they also have other ones, and I'm going to they have something called a judgment report, which is totally different from this, which is used leaders on how well do they make decisions. We also have a Hogan EQ and team reports. Team reports are culling out of from the 3 inventories, but the report format is slightly different. And with your permission, I'll just go to Hogan EQ. But again, I'd like to just stop and see whether there are any questions or anything else, kind of.
If anyone has any other question, please put that in the chat or.
Yeah, I can also park it and ask it later. No problem.
Yeah.
We'll have enough time for questions in the.
Yeah.
So Hogan EQ is also taken from some of the HPI elements and HDS elements. It doesn't go into MBPI as much. Okay. Like I already said, this is used in coaching, leadership development, team solutions, and as one of the inputs in recruitment and promotion. And I've been involved in a lot of them. But like I said, it is just one of the inputs. Nobody will go just by Hogan and say that, okay. But many people come to me and say, okay, this is the CTO. I had a instance when I was doing some consultancy with the company, and they said, we found the CTO for us. And he is best reputation, best technical person, etc. And but they just wanted to make sure. So they've done the Hogan and showed it. And we just highlighted areas for further exploration. It turned out that they didn't hire the person, but it was a combination of many aspects. But the Hogan helped them explore further whether this person will suit them. Okay. I'm going to an example of coaching using Hogan EQ, and my good friend Nikhil, who did his certification with me, and we're kind of joined at the hips because we do talk a lot, and of course keeping the confidentiality about the work we do. So I will talk about Hogan EQ. This is a typical Hogan EQ report, okay? And there are 6 elements and there are scores, and it says rating is low. Awareness, detection, regulation are internal processes. So think of it as a assembly line: input, throughput, output. Okay. Awareness, detection, and regulation is what you do. And then you process it. There is no score for processing. Then what you put out is influence, expression, and empathy. Okay. Now, empathy is what you put out, not what you have. Right. So I'll just take a example of this example itself and how the coaching went. So the 2 places which we did pick up was awareness and detection. Okay. Not empathy, but awareness and detection. And both have to do with feelings and emotions, you know. So is the person aware of their feelings? Are they able to detect it in others? Now, I'll just show an example. Okay, this is the explanation of what is awareness, but let me just come to detection. How to improve detection? So when you see this picture, just write down in the chat, what is the emotion or what is that emotion which you are noticing? It's written there also, so if you're reading it, you'll know. Okay. Anger, frustration, concentration. Yeah. So I think most of you are great detectors because anger is the generally the expression this now. Now, however, disgust is not very far from this expression. And the small thing which is different is in disgust, people curl their noses up, you know, and upper lip is little twisted. So there's an amazing book called Man Watching, People Watching, etc. Very old book by Desmond Morris. If you want, I can put it down in chat. It's called Man Watching by Desmond Morris. It's all pictorial and talks about how each emotion is, you know, how can we detect. And so you will detect if you're looking for it, right? So you talk a lot about what do you observe, spend a day observing people, and if you know them very well, ask them what emotions they felt. Does it tally with what you observe? And mainly, are you spending time taking in that verbal and non-verbal cue? The second thing is a lot of us do, especially HR people, for some reason they don't come on video, even on Zoom calls. So then you have to detect it in their voice, isn't it? Even a voice gives away frustration, anger, happiness, etc. So a lot of the coaching was around this detection. So what cues were displayed? What was the emotion that the person attached to it is something, this is through journaling and observation that this. The second is how is it, let's go up and see. Is the person aware of their own feelings and emotions? What did you feel at that time? And sometimes it's like sensory, it could be in the body. Where did it, you know, somebody says, oh, got you. No, you know, it was a boring session. Where does it feel? You know, where does it hurt or where does it feel? If you're happy, what happens, etc. So that is awareness. And there was some coaching around that also. So I'm just giving very, you know, what they call helicopter view of the coaching. But so I'm going to stop here and ask if there are questions. Otherwise, it's used for competency based. I've done a lot of work where we have mapped competencies to the Hogan scales. again, it's just an indication, because people are saying, okay, you have to be there, you have to be there. Like even I have to be there in every Hogan session. But believe me, I prepare at least 45 minutes for every session. Though sometimes you feel overconfident and think that you can just look at a, 2-page flash report and get it right. But it doesn't happen that way. But that preparation helps you be in the moment. And I think even the use of assessment is more of gathering the data so that you have it on hand to use as needed.
I think one of the questions was which got answered is Hogan EQ based on self-assessment or stakeholder assessment?
So since it is used based on HPI and HDS, it is also based on stakeholder assessment.
Right.
So they have used the same inventories, but they've done mapping of certain traits to EQ. So I'm not saying it's the best method of EQ assessment. It is one of the methods, So if you go to EQ Cafe and there are people who do work only on EQ, right? They may have a different method. But it is based on the self-assessment and then mapped to the stakeholders. So stakeholder feedback is not taken on that same 300 questions. It's an adjective checklist, So take Kunal has taken the same, and then if I know Kunal very well, they'll give me an adjective checklist, and I'll say, okay, he's smart, he's tech savvy, always present, very helpful, or and then they will map it to what the responses are. So I know there are a lot of. No, I'm just saying I know there are a lot of Hogan practitioners here, so they're also answering the same question, which is great.
Yes. A lot of questions are getting answered. I have one question, Gayatri, very quickly.
Yes, please.
Is like what makes Hogan so popular today? Like a lot of psychometrics are being left behind, and this is like very popular in the corporate world today. Even though it does not have India norms or that kind of a database, yes, still. But if you have a view, like given other reports, why are people preferring it so much?
So, see, I think one reason, of course, is that, it is used so much abroad. And here it is used on senior leaders who aspire for global roles. So they're not really worried about norms, Indian norms. They are not competing locally alone. Or even it's not a cheap instrument, it's not like everyone can go. So they generally use it on senior leadership. Okay. And those are people who are, if not a global role, they're affected on a global basis, So for example, there are some questions like, have you ever skied? People will say, how do you expect anybody in India to ski? I don't, but if you've gone abroad and skied, you have a heads up because you're culturally more sensitive. So the not having the global norm, not having a local norm hasn't this. And it could also be because once you know how it is, right? FOMO, everybody is doing it. And so I'm very happy with that. But it is because, it is, and it's solid, right? Like suppose I'm in a GE or something and I am recruiting or even in development or anything else, I'm using Hogan. Somebody comes and says that, hey, where is the validity of the report? They have all the data. And like I said, they have been sued before. Or, it has stood up to scrutiny. And the data is exhaustive. 100,000 people, a norm over that is a lot. So look at the depth of the report, right? And there are now, like, for example, Lumina Spark also is a very, very detailed report. But the standing up to the test of the time has not been that much. And it's one of the few which talks about derailers so openly,
Yeah.
And so I think that is the reason it is popular.
Sure.
And it matches, we have compared it with MBTI and other things. So the reputation part, I think, is a very, very key leadership data. How am I seen? How do I want to be seen? How can I change so I get seen? Though you can't do a Hogan again in 1 year and see whether you've changed, no? Because it measures traits. But you can do a check with the feedback which is coming, So it's basically the coaching or anything is around how early can you detect the triggers of your derailer. Okay, I know I have anger management, but I know my hand will twitch. Those in poker they call it tells. You will soon, if you reflect, know your tells. So you're prepared for it. Then maybe you will respond rather than react. No, previously you're just blowing up. You may look at two options before still deciding to blow up. It's okay. Sometimes anger works, but it is a concerted decision, not just a muscle memory kind of reaction. The derailers that is why only when they come very frequently are they called derailers. If it happens once in a while, it will not even come across as a derailer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I also think no other report gives 3 separate reports. I haven't heard of it, but I don't have the great overview of the universe of these assessments, but I've done a couple of them. I know the Conferry um, tools. They have different tools, but in the same one, 3. By the way, you can take just 1, 2, or all 3, depending on what you want to do. They have occupation-wise for salespeople, they have a separate report, which may be just based on HPI. So it is possible to do just independently 1, 2, or 3 like that. So let me hand it over to my good friend Nikhil, but before that, I have to hand it over to my good friend Kunal, so that the few of them who don't know Nikhil will get to know him better. And thank you, Nikhil, for being my comrade in arms.
You're welcome.
Welcome, Nikhil. Welcome to our series again. I know you've been there before, but very quickly before you talk about the case study, I just want to introduce everyone else to Nikhil that you are a chapter member as well and an MCC coach. We got you for an MCC panel discussion last year, which was very, very interesting and insightful. Nikhil comes with more than 3,000 hours of coaching experience, and then also more than 1,000 hours of life coaching hours. He's coached people in the corporate, from CEOs, CXOs, and MDs and business global heads. And apart from this, his 33 years of experience, his 25 years were with industries like CPG, manufacturing, and different corporate roles. So welcome, Nikhil. Thank you again for joining us today with Gayatri and sharing your insights.
Thanks. Yeah, so what I'll do is just share some of my, experience. As a coach, I've been, ever since even before I formally started coaching, I was certified in, various DISC type of psychometric instruments, right? Thomas profiling. There's a Canadian one called McQuaig, then predictive index, and so on. And then, of course, Hogan. And a couple of more others. When it came to coaching, I saw that question. I think that's a valid enough question because, there is always that risk or danger of boxing people with labels or, them taking it that way. And will that really help the coaching, right? So I've always, I always approached it with some degree of cynicism, let's say a healthy surface cynicism. And then I'll share with you one experience where I feel this, something like Hogan worked. Okay. So typically the way, I'm just giving you my shorthand understanding of what I do when I coach is I invite the client to self-observe, to introspect, to look at their own behavior, monitor it, with whatever behavior is relevant to the problem situation that they brought up. And then go a little deeper into looking at what goes behind creating those behaviors, right? Like, for example, what do they feel? How are they appraising a situation, framing it? What are the emotions that are coming up, their thoughts, beliefs, values, memories? Yeah. And then choosing to where to intervene, right? The whole idea is that we ask them, just as we look at them, invite them to sit with us and look at their own behaviors in relation to that problem situation. And then, it comes to them, okay, maybe I need to intervene here, yeah, at this particular point and create a new behavior. Yeah? So, and that's what they could then begin to work on. So that's how I look at my coaching. And okay, here's an example from executive coaching. This was a CXO level. He was a functional head, yeah, and in a very large company. The sponsor and the HR, in this case, said that this person, this client, was very process-oriented, systematic, very good at his job, clearly. And that's why they were investing in expensive coaching for him with his domain expertise. By personality, personable, polite, conscientious person, industrious, orderly. So you're getting the drift, right? Open to feedback. He's a very polite person, yeah, and always asks for feedback. And he's known for his high standard of work. But what they found was he was always on, he was always turned on about his expertise, his domain process, process orientation, constantly following up, maybe to the extent of micromanaging, giving his people, less freedom to operate. And okay, so this was what they said. And, you have that initial chemistry call, and he kept using the word, I told them, right? So there was a kind of continuous or continual telling, yeah, because he felt that, his view was really, I'll tell you about his perception about, what was reason for the coaching and why he had agreed for it. So he felt that his team members lacked that, in that particular specific sub-function which he was heading, they lacked that expertise and also were not taking ownership. And they were not coming up to speed quickly enough. And then, he was very sensitive to the stakeholder feedback that he was getting, saying that, things are not up to the mark. While he accepted that, the boss's feedback, the HR's feedback, the sponsor's feedback, saying that, one thing was, in a nutshell, saying, he needs to take a chill pill. Yeah, he needs to relax. And but he said, I'm also accountable. So I accept that I need to relax, but I'm also accountable. So we kind of zeroed in on how do I cultivate the trustworthiness of my team members? Yeah, how do I get them to take ownership? So we started with the coaching. There was various other 360 feedback. There was stakeholder feedback, 180-degree feedback on a regular basis. So he shared all those, yeah, and we worked with that. And then came the Hogan report. After that, right? So at that point, what came up was he shared that with me. He of course went through it with himself, and he maybe it was not kind of debriefed to him adequately, but he had read through it, and those words caught his eye. So what came through was high ambition, high prudence, right? So he wants to take charge. He wants to get into leadership positions. He's takes initiative, but he's also very systematic, very careful, very structured in his approach. He also had low adjustment, so he tended to respond in very expressive ways to anything that happened. Low sociability, he was more task focused. Interpersonal sensitivity was low, so he used to just get straight to the point on the task, yeah, and then say, you should do this way. It came from that telling. And also a low inquisitiveness, right? So he was not really into curiosity to know more about. Yes, so that came across as a personality. What he preferred to do, typically what he had the tendency to do. Under pressure, highly excitable, leisurely, diligent, skeptical. So what that really meant was, when under pressure, all those which could otherwise have been acceptable, his expressiveness became even more so. There was a bit of skeptical thing, saying that not fully trusting his people. It also said, it made sense. So anyway, so what I did was, and okay, we're looking at his motivations: high security, commerce, tradition, power. Right? I asked him to, the question I asked him as a coach was, what about what you're reading in your report is relevant to what we are working on? How do I cultivate the trustworthiness, right? So the first thing was, he found a lot of, he was open to feedback, right? That is also part of his personality. He said, this is exactly like, it's how I am. Yeah, it describes me perfectly, or at least to a large degree. So there was a lot of acceptance of even the, like I told him, there's nothing right or wrong. Each of us develop a personality based on our life experiences, and it works for us, so we use it. But now we are looking at, is there something which we can, the basic thing of, it's got you here, but if you want to go, your ambitions and he was an ambitious person. So, your goals for your career, particularly now this particular thing we are working on, saying that how can you be more relaxed and get the best out of your current lot? Yeah. Leave a legacy of trustworthy people. How do you do that? And what of what you're reading in this report is relevant? Is it helping you? Or is it something that you'd like to work on? So what we came up with, I'm just talking now, if you read the subscales, I just said, read these subscales from the report. There's a flash report which gives everything in one page. So the high score, 4 out of 4, was volatile, easily disappointed, mistrusting, avoidant, unappreciated, organized, standards, perfectionistic. So you kind of get the drift, right? And he said, yeah, maybe I'm putting too much pressure on my guys. I'm not giving them the space. Okay. So when he looked at this, it kind of brought that stepping out, looking from outside at his own behaviors or preferred behaviors, as this suggests. And he then said, how else? So I asked him, okay, how else can you do it differently from what you're doing now? He struggled a little bit because he was too far into this thing. So coaching questions came out saying, like, for example, they say that when you move from a telling to a consulting, asking of views, it breaks the patterns of behaviors. Yeah. So what do you think about that? So it was really introducing him to different ways of looking at, how you can go about cultivating trustworthiness. And we then decided, based on what he saw, that maybe I need to ask them more questions, right? Just like you're asking me. And that moved to a more asking approach. The initial feedback after 3, sessions was that, yeah, he's his own subordinates, 180-degree feedback in that organization they keep having, that he's more, chilled, he's more relaxed. His boss was, in the committee, he said, yeah, I see this guy as, one thing I see more relaxed, more of a, people who work with him, more of a smile on their faces, etc., etc. But then, of course, that's just work in progress. What now he's working on just, is that how can I be calm and relaxed even when I see somebody messing up work? Yeah. So that's what we have moved. So he's now been practicing, because I believe in giving enough and more time between a session and the second session and the next one after that, that they do something, they practice something which they have taken away, and then they come back and, in between, of course, we keep in touch on WhatsApp and stuff like that, or informal call. So when the formal call comes, there is some data. Okay, so he came with some data, in the sense 180-degree, his boss's stakeholder, that, yeah, he's, about the change in the approach that he's going about. Yeah, he gives us more time to maybe pick up something rather than keep telling us. It's a job with high pressure and a lot of accountability. So I thought that was a major shift. But of course, it is work in progress. But where the thing came, where it was helpful, was him reading his Hogan report. Yeah. So that's, I thought, is relevant to this particular discussion. And like I said that if that's my personal view, if the instrument does not bring up something of relevance for him to sit back and look at his behaviors and say that maybe this is what I want to work on, then we move on to some other data. Yeah. Because there is so much data that we can ask, as coaches, we say, okay, we'll get it from your stakeholders. Like now I'm going to do one with his other key peers, and which was suggested by him himself, saying that, maybe you can get that. Because I had encouraged him, you go out and ask people, about your own, say that you're working on this, because it's part of your leadership development. Yeah. So he said, can you also help me with collecting that by directly speaking to them independent of me? So I said, sure. So that also. So that's my sharing.
Thanks a lot, Nikhil. I'll just share one last slide. Mrinal, just hold on, we'll come to you. I just want to share one example of how we have used competency in, wait, let's stop. Okay, just give me a second. Yeah. Okay. Kunal, I'm not able to share.
I'll share.
Yeah, just the last slide. So the thing, the kind of coaching we get around Hogan is generally of people, who are very successful. So to that extent, because this is ultimately a self response, right? It's not somebody else saying about them. It's something they themselves have said. So it does help in moving forward with alpha males, alpha females, etc. And like Marshall Goldsmith said, what got them here could be their operational decision making, it could be something else. And now they need business acumen. So this is an example of how, we map competencies to some indications on Hogan. And if a company has competency framework, and many of them will come and say, I want this person's business acumen as described by them to be better. So then we use this we kind of call out this kind of a matrix and use it. So this is just an example of two competencies. One is an operational one and one is a strategic one. So Mrinal had a question she wanted. So can you?
Yeah. So I'll just, So my question was that how do you remain unbiased, neutral, non-judgmental with your client when you already have been shared the Hogan report of the client and also have the stakeholder information, feedback with you to be specifically working on some problem or issue with the client? How do you open up in such cases? Because you have a lot of information with you. How do you remain non-judgmental, unbiased, and neutral so that the trust can be built?
Correct. Yeah. So like I said, people are about their skill. Let me take an example of prudence. Okay, as you might have noticed, my prudence is low because I made 2 spelling mistakes in one sentence. I spelled DST and information doesn't have the N. Now, those who are low on prudence wouldn't have noticed because they just look at the big picture. Okay, she's written this, I got the thing. But those who are high on prudence will make up. Having said that, I'm very punctual. That's not really a low prudence behavior. So having seen, if you practiced or seen it a lot, you will try to be unbiased. But as I think you may also attest, it's very difficult to be totally unbiased, right? Like I remember I got a client who was, working through his 3rd marriage, which was almost falling apart. And I'm not used to 1st, 2nd, 3rd marriage, right? But you need to put that on the, seal it up and try to address it as it is. And if you go from their acceptance or not, then it is easier to be biased. If we also see it as a statistical report, which says these are likely to be the manifestation, but the person whose report it is the best judge of that manifestation. So
Would
you
it-
need to keep that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Would it be okay if the client is if the stakeholders are open and we tell them, please don't share the Hogan report at this point of time, even if you have it?
Oh, yeah.
That,
Like I
right?
told you, I try to do that. So generally, I will share it at an appropriate moment because I don't share it before the first session.
Yeah.
But there are companies and sponsors who says, give them the Hogan debrief and then the coaching will start. And I have done Hogan debrief when the coach has not been a certified person. So I just did this feedback. And then that coach was also there and they took it over from there.
But what
So
happens?
I don't like to reveal simply because that will cloud what they think of themselves, right? And I think it's important for them to acknowledge what they think of themselves consciously and then see what the report is. Yes, you had something else.
So if you are the coach as well as you are the Hogan debriefer, how do you go about it?
You decide when to debrief.
Okay. So I if I would get the chance, I would probably go with the first session to build the trust and then later on get it to the debriefing part of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can do that with any instrument, whether it is 16PF or MBTI or whatever. Only thing is they don't give so many data points, right?
Yeah,
Not
they
as
don't give that much of data point. You're right.
This is so actually the worst thing to do is send them a report much earlier.
Yeah.
Because then some people who brood will go through it and find all the negatives. So you give them enough time to read, but not so much weeks and weeks that they keep, internalizing it.
Yeah. So one of my clients, I remember, because Hogan is so much in depth, the report, if you take the insight report, one of my clients came back and said, my wife doesn't know so many details about me. How can the report give so much of information?
Oh, yeah.
That much of interpretation you can, draw from it.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But some people also say that my wife has been saying the same things, but I didn't believe her. So depends.
It's true. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrinal. I think we had a question from Alok as well. Alok,
Yeah, hi. I think
I
I had a question, but Gayatri addressed it during the, responding to earlier comments. So I think it get addressed. Thank you very much for a very wonderful, insightful session.
Sure.
And there are a lot of Hogan practitioners here. I can recognize many of them. Anything you want to add? I'm not going to call you out by name. Don't worry.
Okay. Hi, Gayatri. May I say something? Arvind Lokre here.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, a wonderful session, first of all. I did a similar session for the Mumbai chapter way back in December. But it was not a session like this. It was about how to prepare yourself with the Hogan report because it's so detailed.
Oh, okay.
So I can offer to this group, there is something in the Hogan journal, the guidebook, which takes together all the 3 reports.
Coaching protocol.
The coaching no, not the coaching protocol. It takes all the 3 reports and puts them into, compared to the competencies. So there is that wheel is there. That Hogan wheel is there of competency.
Do share it with us. Yeah.
So I have put it on an Excel thing. So if you just put in everything, it kind of comes out very, very neatly.
So we tried that, not been very successful.
I can share it with the group just
that
now.
would be very helpful. So we
just
have hacks of how to analyze, but
just a couple of comments on when to use the report, and I can share my experience.
Sure.
I normally ask the person to fill in a free flow, what's working, what's not working, and what would you like to change before I give him the Hogan report. I give the Hogan report a day, 2 days before the actual session. so that he doesn't have
Yeah.
or she doesn't have time to kind of over intellectualize.
Exactly.
And people at this level over intellectualize. So
that is, and yeah, great. I also sent them an email saying there will be conflicts. Don't get worried. Bring it and we will discuss, because otherwise people say, here it is saying I'm moody, there it is saying I am very good with people, here it's saying I'm introverted.
Exactly.
How can that be true? So I just sent them a small brief saying that these are likely to be of concern.
So I send the same thing also, and I tell them what to follow first. I always ask them to go through the MVPI first.
Okay.
And then I ask them to go to the HPI and then HDS, because MVPI you cannot fight too much. You cannot say
that is true.
Okay. So that is one of the comments that I thought I can share with.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I also I completely agree with when you said my wife said that I know all this about you. In fact, one of my coaches said, why do you have to pay somebody from outside to hear all this? I've been telling you this for 15 years. So
it happens.
So that is one. The next point is that Hogan report, according to me, is if it says north, it is likely to be north. It will not be south. So that kind of confidence I have got. I mean, amongst all the 300, 400, 500 Hogan instruments I have administered, I have not come across even one, maybe just one, because he had answered in a different frame of mind. So I had to actually go through the report and I had to contact Hogan to say, I'm stuck. I've asked him to do the Hogan again, so help me out because of that. So those are some of my thoughts. A wonderful session.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Nikhil, thank you very much.
I must point out one thing. Yeah. Many clients don't use MVPI. They just go with HPI and HDS also. So we can't really just, but in my debrief, unlike what Mrinal says, I am biased. I go and see which way is likely to land well. If it is high and low adjustment and they're very fear of criticism and lots of negatives, then we go through MVPI, which is generally, easier to handle. So I change it. I don't always go for MVPI, but that is individual style,
Yeah.
Yeah. And some people there was one person who had asked about the certification. Now, certification, there's only one franchisee of Hogan, which is Three Fish Consultancy. And you can directly, contact them they are the ones who do the certification as well as who administer the instrument. I think Kunal has already given the email,
just look at the link.
Yeah.
I mean, the cost varies. I think I don't have the right idea, but
that is true. Jayshree, it does vary, and also it is dollar denominated. So the numbers are very. It's not a nice round number always.
Is there a range you can share, Gayatri?
I do it one-on-one with you. Okay. Because I don't have authentic data, and I can't represent and say what is this.
No, that's fine.
So Arvind, if you can send Kunal or me the report.
I don't have your emails. I can send it, or I'm technologically challenged. I was trying to put it on the group the way some of you have smartly done it, but I'm not able to.
It doesn't matter. Okay, so let me do one thing. I will message you my email ID.
I will send it across. Yeah.
And then we'll share it with those who have attended or those who are asking. Okay.
Yeah, and anybody wants to connect with me, you can contact me.
Put it in that slide deck or whatever you're sending. Put your contact number and ID, email ID, and they can then contact you directly.
Yeah, in fact, my presentation is there on the Mumbai ICF Mumbai website. It's there. It's there. If anybody wants to see it.
Sure. But send it anyway, because not all of us are that diligent to go there and look it up. So that will be nice. And so thanks a lot for your time and interest. And I'll hand it over to my good friend Kunal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and only gratitude to you, to Nikhil as well, for taking out time today, Gayatri, and taking us through this amazing report. Very insightful. It was one of the most important pieces of this puzzle of psychometric assessments that we've been solving. This will be our sixth session on the assessments that we are doing. So, indeed, it would not have been complete without Hogan, when given how unique and popular it is in today's times. So yeah, thank you so much, and we'll put this recording up onto YouTube channel as well, so those who have missed it can watch it there. And yeah, we'll soon come out with the next webinar, which is again very interesting one. So look out for that communication.
And I must thank all the coaches for managing so well and finishing well in time. So big thank you. They think that behavioral people come, HR people come, they don't have structure, they can't do things. But I think as coaches, we've done a great job. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.